Right now, take a moment to notice all the talking in your life. The conversations, the phone calls, the muttering to yourself, the constant background chatter of other people. Speech is so woven into being human that we barely notice it. It's like asking a fish to notice water. But now imagine removing it entirely. Imagine that for 30 days you say nothing at all. No conversations, no phone calls, not a single spoken word. Complete, total silence, sustained for a month. It sounds simple, even peaceful. But your body and your brain are built around communication, and taking away your voice for 30 days sets off a series of changes that are far more profound than most people would ever guess. Changes in your vocal cords, in the deep language centers of your brain, in your other senses, and in your very sense of self. So let's begin the experiment. This is what happens to your brain and body after 30 days of complete silence. And the first changes begin in the most physical place of all, the instrument of your voice itself. Let's start with your voice, because it's a physical machine that responds to disuse. Your voice is produced by your vocal cords, two small folds of tissue in your throat that vibrate as air passes over them. Like any part of your body, they're maintained through use. When you stop speaking entirely for weeks, a few things happen. The muscles involved in speech, like any muscles that go unused, can begin to weaken slightly. The fine coordination required for speech, the incredibly complex, lightning-fast choreography of your tongue, lips, breath, and vocal cords can become a little rusty without constant practice. People who go a long time without speaking often report that when they finally try to talk again, their voice comes out hoarse, weak, or croaky at first, and it takes a little while to warm back up to normal. This is usually temporary, and the voice recovers with use. But it's a vivid reminder that speech is a physical skill, maintained by doing it. Your voice is, in a sense, a muscle memory, and 30 days of silence lets that memory gather a little dust. But the truly fascinating changes aren't in your throat. They're happening higher up, in your brain. Within the first week or two, your brain, which dedicates enormous resources to language, begins to respond to the silence. Speech and language are among the most complex things your brain does, involving large, specialized regions that handle producing words, understanding them, and coordinating the whole act of communication. These networks are normally firing constantly. In sustained silence, the parts dedicated to producing speech get far less of their usual exercise. Now, your brain is remarkably adaptable, a property called neuroplasticity, and when one type of input drops away, the brain tends to reallocate resources toward whatever you are doing instead. Many people who undertake long silence, like those on extended silent retreats, report that their internal world becomes louder and richer to compensate. Their inner voice, their visual imagination, their awareness of their own thoughts can become more vivid. With the constant outward flow of speech switched off, attention turns inward. This is one reason silence has been used for thousands of years in contemplative traditions as a tool for self-reflection. Remove the talking, and the mind's inner landscape comes into sharper focus. And as your attention turns inward, your other senses begin to sharpen too. By the second and third week, many people in deep silence report a striking effect. Their other senses seem heightened. Sounds become more detailed and textured. You start to notice the layers in birdsong, the hum of distant machinery, the subtle sounds of your own body. Many report noticing details in their visual environment they'd normally talk right past. There's a likely explanation rooted in attention. Normally, a huge amount of your mental bandwidth is occupied by language, planning what to say, processing what others say, narrating your life. When you remove spoken conversation, that bandwidth is freed up, and your brain can devote more attention to raw sensory input. You're not literally hearing better in terms of your ears, but you're perceiving more because you're attending more. The world can seem to grow more vivid and present. This is the upside of silence that contemplatives have described for millennia. A heightened, almost meditative awareness of the present moment. But silence is not purely serene, because humans are fundamentally social creatures. And this is where the experiment turns more complicated. Now we have to address the psychological and emotional side, honestly, because this is the most significant part. Humans are deeply social animals, and spoken communication is one of our primary ways of connecting, bonding, and feeling understood. Going 30 days without speaking, especially if it also means withdrawing from normal social interaction, can have a real psychological impact. On one hand, in a chosen, structured setting, like a silent retreat, many people find the experience calming, clarifying, even profound, reporting reduced stress and a sense of peace. Without the pressure to perform in conversation, some feel a weight lift. But on the other hand, prolonged silence and the social isolation that can accompany it may also bring loneliness, low mood, and a sense of disconnection, because we're wired to reach for connection through words. The emotional outcome depends enormously on the context, whether the silence is freely chosen and supported, or isolating and imposed. It's worth being clear-eyed here. Meaningful social connection is genuinely important for mental health, and silence that cuts a person off from it is very different from silence practiced within a supportive setting. The same 30 days can be healing or harmful, depending on how and why it's done. And underneath the emotions, your stress chemistry itself may be shifting. Let's look at stress, because there's a real physiological layer here. The constant communication and social navigation of daily life is, for many people, a low-level source of stress. The pressure to respond, to perform, to keep up. Stepping out of that into chosen silence can lower the body's stress response. Some research on silence and meditation suggests it may help reduce levels of the stress hormone cortisol and shift the body toward its calmer, rest and recover state. People often report better sleep and a slower, steadier sense of mind during extended quiet. There's even research suggesting that silence itself, the absence of noise, not just speech, can be restorative for the brain, giving its attention systems a chance to recover from constant stimulation. So, for someone in a supportive setting, 30 days of silence might genuinely calm the nervous system. But this benefit is tightly bound to that earlier caveat. It holds when the silence is chosen, and the person isn't drowning in loneliness. The body's stress response is exquisitely sensitive to whether we feel safe and connected or isolated and alone. Silence can soothe it, or, in the wrong context, aggravate it. Which brings us to the deepest change of all. What happens to your sense of who you are? As the 30 days progress, some people report the most profound effect of all, a shift in their sense of self. So much of our identity is constructed and expressed through speech. We narrate our lives to others. We define ourselves in conversation. We think in words. When you remove spoken language for an extended time, that constant verbal self-construction quiets down. Many long-term silence practitioners describe a feeling of the ordinary chattering self softening, of becoming more of an observer of their own mind, less tangled in the endless narration. Some describe it as peaceful and freeing. Others find it disorienting at first. This is why silence is such a powerful and ancient tool. By removing one of the main ways we maintain our everyday sense of self, it can crack open a different, quieter way of experiencing existence. Your brain, freed from the relentless task of producing language, settles into an unusual and often illuminating state. It's a reminder that the constant inner and outer talk we take for granted is not the only mode your mind can run in. Beneath the chatter, there's a quieter awareness that silence allows to surface. So let's pull the whole picture together, fairly and completely. 30 days of complete silence reshapes you on several levels at once. Physically, your voice weakens and grows rusty from disuse, recovering only when you speak again. In your brain, the language networks quiet down, while your adaptable mind redirects its resources inward, sharpening your imagination, your inner awareness, and your other senses. Emotionally, the experience cuts both ways, potentially calming, clarifying, and stress-reducing in a chosen, supported setting, but potentially lonely and isolating without that support, because we are social beings built for connection. And at the deepest level, the constant verbal construction of your everyday self softens, opening a quieter, more observational way of being. The grand lesson is how much of being human is built on communication, so much that removing it doesn't just make life quieter. It changes your body, rewires your attention, and alters your very sense of self. Speech isn't just something we do. It's woven into who we are, which is exactly why its absence echoes so loudly. Silence, it turns out, is not empty at all. It's full of effects we simply never stop talking long enough to notice. And if you're going through a period of real isolation or low mood, that's worth taking seriously. Connection is not a luxury for the human mind, but a need, which leads to a natural next question about pushing the human mind and body to another extreme. We've now seen what happens when you remove speech, but what happens when you remove something even more fundamental that your brain depends on every single night? Sleep. What unfolds in your body and mind when you stop sleeping, hour by hour, is one of the most dramatic stories your biology has to tell, and it's the one waiting for you. In the video on screen right now.